Islands host one of the strangest patterns in nature. Why do animals on islands come in different sizes to those on the mainland? It's called Foster's rule, or the island rule, and it's this idea that once a species ends up on an island, its body size tends to shift over time. Small species get bigger and big species get smaller. It sounds simple, but it's anything but settled science. Since the idea was first proposed in the 1960s, it's been hotly debated. Some researchers found strong evidence for it, while others argue it's not nearly as universal as it seems. But recently, after analysing thousands of species, scientists found that the island rule does hold true, especially for mammals, birds and reptiles, though amphibians seem to buck the trend, mostly just getting bigger. So let's look at how this might work. If you think of a full-size mammoth ending up on a small island with limited food, over generations, the individual mammoths that survive the best are the ones that need less to eat, because there is less to eat. And slowly, the species evolves into a dwarf mammoth, maybe only the size of a small horse or a pony. And this actually happened on islands like Crete. On the flip side, if you take a small species like a mouse, living on an island with no natural predators, fewer competitors, and a whole island to explore, suddenly being bigger is an advantage. So over time, that mouse might evolve into a giant island rodent, in some cases twice the size of its mainland cousins. What's driving this? For big species, the pressure is usually resource scarcity. So that is that islands are small, there's only so much food, and usually no room for massive animals and predators. So shrinking down is an energy-saving strategy. For small species, it's the opposite. When there's no threat from predators, they're free to get bigger. Bigger size can mean better access to mates, or simply a better shot at surviving in a harsh island environment. And then you get the really weird outcomes. A tiny dwarf elephant in Cyprus that only weighed a few hundred kilos, about 2% of its 10-ton ancestor, or a giant dormouse in Mallorca the size of a squirrel. There was even a massive, possibly flightless swan on Malta with 3-meter wingspan. And these are just a few of the incredible fossils discovered by Dorothea Bate. She was an early 20th century Welsh scientist who basically pioneered the field of archaeozoology and was likely the first female scientist employed by the Natural History Museum. But it's not just ancient history. Island gigantism and dwarfism still show up today. The St Kilda field mouse is twice the size of its mainland cousin, and the Komodo dragon is a giant predator evolved on Indonesian islands. There's even evidence that on colder islands and more seasonal islands, animals evolve larger body sizes to conserve heat, and that is a classic adaptation to harsh and cold conditions. So, while Foster's rule is still being debated, particularly in amphibians, and depending on the island's size and climate, it's clear that islands shape species in dramatic and often extreme ways.